So good morning. I'm Andrew Sullivan. I'm the chair of the IAB, and I'm very pleased this morning to bring you the report from the IAB. This is the report from the community. Now, many of you may not know what the IAB does because people keep asking us that, so I'm pretty sure that people don't know. In any case, these are the things that we're chartered to do, and you notice one of those is in black because, of course, we haven't had to do that since Dallas. We've done a bunch of stuff since Dallas. Here are a bunch of things, and I'm not going to go through all of them because this kind of status thing is, I know, very, very dull, but you can get these slides online so you can have a look at it. There are a couple of things on here that we're going to go into greater detail later in this session, but it'll be obvious when we come to those. We also publish documents in the IAB stream, more on the IAB stream in a moment. So here are some documents that we're working on. These ones are the IAB stream itself, our work items, and then there are these items about the RFC series itself. Now, you may notice that last time we had this draft IAB DOI 1, and we said then community review was complete and it's being implemented. And then a few weeks ago, we asked for community input on this draft IAB DOI 04 draft, and we received some comments. And the comments were about the process by which we did this. So the complaint was essentially that we had asked for community input after we'd already implemented it, and so there's something to this, right? What we've decided is that we're going to do something about this in order to not repeat this mistake. So having something that we've already implemented and then say, could we please have community review on this, maybe not so useful. We haven't exactly decided how we're going to modify the process for these kinds of documents, but it's going to be something like this. We're going to have a look at, while the document is being worked on, there's going to be a number of iterative cycles where various things are tried out. This is going to be important, for instance, for the XML RFC version 2 and version 3 and the various format changes that Heather's going to talk about in a moment. So we'll have iterative development of that stuff. And then on top of that, we'll have a period where we announce, okay, it's time for community input. And that's our standard community input tradition, but we won't have implemented it yet. We'll be running in some kind of parallel mode or something. Again, we haven't decided exactly how this is going to work. When that is successful, assuming we ever get to success, because of course we could have a failure. I know it's impossible to believe that we could ever have a failure, but we could have a failure. But assuming we have success, we'll finally then declare success, and then we'll say, okay, now community input is done, and we'll publish the thing. And what that publishing will do, it will say, when we make the publication, well, this is what we did. So, things will be done at the end, and we won't be asking for community input on something that we've already done, which admittedly was not the smartest thing I've ever done. So that's how we're going to solve that problem. Okay, now we organize our work into programs, as many of you know. These are the programs. You will note that internationalization is still up there. I mentioned the last time in Dallas, I guess, that we've got some weakness in the internationalization area, and if you're desperately keen to know a lot about internationalization, please come and talk to us, because we would be very happy to have some more expertise there. In any case, these are the programs, and the program page is there. Now, programs are a funny thing. We organize our stuff into programs because, I know this will be impossible to believe, but the IAB doesn't know everything. And so we have to get, outside experts. And also, IAB terms last, you're typically appointed for 2 years. And, maybe there's a work program that lasts much longer than any one IAB member is around. And so we want, long work items to go longer. At the same time, we want to be useful, and this means that we need to be able to get input from people who are experts in these various areas. Now, experts often don't want to just, give their opinion and then have, the opinion ignored by the IAB, who, believe it or not, also don't have infinite time, and so don't always come up to speed on every single thing that we think about. So we have this problem because IAB statements go out over, or IAB RFCs or whatever, go out over the names of the IAB members, right? And so if I am going to sign something, I don't want to put my name on something that I don't have a positive agreement with. Maybe I don't know anything about it. Maybe I disagree, but probably not. I might not have the time to work up for it. We've had this idea that maybe the programs could, on occasion, they could say things on their own. At the same time, we're a little nervous about this because, of course, the programs are really just creatures of the IAB. So we're trying out some different things. What we're trying to do is see if there are occasions, and we want to be careful about this, but we want to see if there are some occasions when the programs can issue, their views independently of the IAB. And we actually tried this out this time. So the IANA Evolution program needed to respond to the ICANN cross-community working group on IANA stewardship. I know you're all totally engaged with the IANA transition. So we needed to respond to this IANA transition issue. But the time for public comment was quite short. There was no way we could bring the whole IAB up to speed in time. So what we did was the lead of the IANA Evolution program, Russ Housley, he sent a note and said, this is what the program thinks, but note that it's what the program thinks. And we're going to see how this works. I don't promise that this is always going to be perfect, but I think it's a reasonably good idea in some limited circumstances. I don't want people to get the impression, however, that what we're doing is setting up some sort of parallel working group or some completely new thing that we haven't told anybody about or anything like that. What we're really trying to do is, maximize the utility of the work and make sure that the people who are in the programs, can do things when necessary, because after all, the IAB has created these groups in an effort to try to get work done, and we don't want to bog ourselves down in needless bureaucracy. Now, you may remember, although you may forget, but you might remember that the A in IAB is supposed to stand for architecture. And so one of the things that we want to do with the programs is architecture. And so when we organize ourselves into these long-term programs, they're always trying to answer this question: what principles guide the work in the programs area? That's really the idea behind the programs. And once those principles are clear, we might do something else with it. So maybe the IETF wants to pick it up, maybe the IRTF wants to pick it up because we don't have principles that are sufficiently defined. Maybe it turns out that it's work that just isn't appropriate for this community. That sometimes happens. It could be, of course, that we discover once we've got all the principles laid out that this is not very interesting work and nobody's going to do it. So there's lots of possibilities. But the basic goal is to lay out some principles and then say, okay, well, here we are, we've done some architecture, now somebody else has to move on from this. Programs can do this work in just about any way they like. And so, sometimes you do you work on a whiteboard, or you might work on napkins because there's a lot of those in the bar and you happen to be there. You might write some exploratory code, and this is one of the things that people do, especially in our kind of field, right? People write exploratory code to try something out, but that doesn't mean that it's important or valuable or necessarily something you're going to keep. It could be throwaway stuff. So we don't expect the IETF ever to adopt our whiteboards or our napkins, and that also means that we don't expect people to adopt our exploratory code. I wanted to make that clear because sometimes people are worried that when they see the IAB doing this work, oh, well, the IAB is off doing engineering, and I want to assure everybody that the IAB, when we're doing engineering, we're doing it in the IETF just like everybody else. All right, as the last item I want to mention in this update, we've got this workshop coming up. I think this is really good work. The IAB has been somewhat successful with workshops that are engaging other communities, and this is a joint workshop on managing radio networks in an encrypted world, and it's joint with the Internet Society, AT&T, and the GSMA. That's going to happen this September in Atlanta. So our workshops so far have been successful when we engage other people like this, and I think this is going to be a good one. Obviously, there are challenges. We've embraced the encryption sort of ubiquitously, and it creates challenges for operators of networks. So this is that's what we're going to tackle there. All right, we have three more items that we want to talk about today. First of all, Ted Hardie is going to talk about an appeal response. This is another item that we have. After that, Lars Eggert is going to come up and talk about the IRTF, and then Heather is going to talk about the RFC editor. So I'm going to introduce them all now, one after the other, and Ted is first.
So as Andrew noted, one of the roles of the IAB is to handle appeals, and in this case we did receive an appeal during this last period from JFC Morphin, and he appealed the ISG's response to his appeal to them of the approval of draft ITF IANA plan ICG response. We received that appeal on June 22nd. There were a significant number of recusals for this particular consideration. We had recusals from Yari, Mark, Russ, Andrew, and Suzanne. Yari, because he's a member of the ISG, is typically recused in these cases. Mark was the working group chair. Russ was a document editor of the relevant document. Andrew was the document shepherd, and Suzanne has another role in the ICANN world, and so all of them were recused. As it stands, the IAB typically makes its decisions as unanimously as possible. In this particular case, we did achieve unanimity among the non-recused members, which also meets our voting criteria of at least 7 full members agreeing and there being no more than 2 dissents. In this case, there were no dissents. The IAB response is now posted on our website. You're welcome to read the full response. It's also linked in this, you'll find a link as well to the full appeal. The summary of the outcome here is that the IAB declined to annul the decision of the ISG to approve the document. We concurred with their response in their appeal response that appeals must be of actions already taken, that it is not appropriate, in other words, to use an appeal to direct future action. We also believe that the RFC 2026 appeal process was followed in this case, so there's a procedural question of whether or not it was followed. And we noted that some of the complaint here was that the appeal process didn't include mechanisms for doing a whole bunch of other things. And we noted to Mr. Morphin that other processes laid out in our documents, including the working group process itself, remained open to him, and those provided avenues, for example, to have the questions which he poses in the appeals to be answered. And we recommended that he use those to pose those questions. There's one kind of minor fillip to that, was he asked a question of whether or not you could draw a conclusion about the IAB's consensus around a topic from the conclusion of the working group, and while we said no, in general you cannot, because the IAB consensus may be different to that of the working group. In this particular case, there is an IAB note in the document where the IAB explicitly concurred with that particular document. And so that was the response to the appeal. Lars, you're up now.
They're not in here. You can switch.
Okay. Where are they?
They're here on the page. Oops.
All right, good morning. I'm Lars Eggert. I chair the IRTF task force. This is the short version of the status of the IRTF. The long version I give at the IRTF open meeting, which in this case happened yesterday, so you missed it. We have a record number of research groups meeting. There's 9 groups that are currently chartered. 8 of them are meeting this week. I'm not going to read you the list. You can see it. Basically, everybody but the delay-tolerant networking research group is meeting, but they recently spun out the delay-tolerant networking working group in the IETF, and so there is work going on here. There's a question whether DTN RG will have enough stuff left to do now that the working group is incubated to continue. We'll discuss that. There's also 3 proposed research groups that are meeting. There's some formatting issue with the slides. One is on how ossified is the protocol stack research group. I think they're meeting for the first time. This is an effort by a few researchers that have measurements about the ossification of the network and how difficult it is, therefore, to do further protocol design. And we'll see whether that can turn into sort of a continuous research group or if it's more like a single meeting. But we'll see. This is the first time they're meeting. I'm optimistic. Second group is the Human Rights Protocol Considerations Group. They've met in Dallas already as a proposed research group, and they have had sessions at SAC, for example, at the IATF. So this topic has been discussed in the IETF for a bit already, and they're trying to work in the IRTF on the topic. I encourage you also to go to them. And finally, on the bottom, which you can't read, is the proposed thing-to-thing research group. Again, they also already met in Dallas. They had 2 full-day meetings, site meetings, Saturday and Sunday, and they had a regular slot yesterday already. And so there seems to be quite an active community. The room was more than full. And next time they better ask for a bigger room. So it looks like we might have a few other research groups forming. If you have an idea for another research group, come talk to me. You now know what I look like. And you can also email IRTF Chair at irtf.org. Our open meeting was yesterday, and we're going to review a research group which is not Gaia with the IAB on Friday. The Gaia Chair couldn't, one of the Gaia chairs couldn't travel here, so we decided we were going to pick the Network Function Virtualization Research Group for a Friday review. My status, subjective status on the activity levels, unsurprisingly has a lot of stuff in the green since there's a lot of meetings and a lot of activity. Maybe with the exception of the delay-tolerant networking research group, I mentioned them, and also the congestion control guys are not so busy as they usually are, so I put them in the orange this time. We have an IRTF stream for RFCs. It's a much smaller stream than the IETF stream, for example. So this is our activity level over the different meeting cycles. We published 3 documents since ITF 92 and 2 since ITF 91. Since I didn't give this in Dallas, these are the 5 RFCs that we published since ITF 90. 1 from the software-defined networking research group. 1 from the yeah. We should not do this in the morning again, by the way. Hey, maybe I changed the charter text on the website. You never know. 1 from the ICNRG, 1 from the Crypto Forum Research Group, and 2 from the Network Management Research Group. God. Moving on. So we're doing the Applied Networking Prize for a while now together with ISOC. We are in the 2015 cycle, for which we had 33 nominations. We had 46 for 2014. So we're around, the same ballpark number. We have a selection committee of some IETF folks, some IRTF folks, some academics. We also, now that we've been running this for a few years, included some past prize winners to help us pick the new prize winners. We picked 5 winners for 2015. Some spoke in Dallas, 2 more, Haya and Joao, spoke yesterday at the IRTF open meeting. They were very good talks. These are usually my favorite talks of the entire week, and that's not because I'm biased. I actually think they are amongst the best talks. And we're going to have 2 more at IATF 94 in Yokohama. And the nomination period for the 2016 cycle of this is actually open now, has been open for a few weeks. So if you are reading research papers, and if you read something that you think, hey, this could influence standardization, or this is really interesting for applied research that the IRTF is doing, please nominate that paper. Also, if you've written one that you believe follows the criteria that we want to award awards to, nominate yourself. Nobody but me can tell whether it's a self-nomination or a third-party nomination, and I don't care. All I care about is having good papers to choose from. So there's self-nominations are strongly encouraged. Many of the past winners actually self-nominated, so it's good if you do that. I want to briefly mention Comcast again. They have come to Matt Ford from the RSOC, who arranges the financial side of this, and said, hey, we like this award. We want to support this somehow. Can we? And unsurprisingly, we said, yes, certainly you can. If you are here and you would like to support the ANIP, talk to Matt, talk to me. We're very open. We will use the funds to make the prize better, hopefully attracting more participation and making it a nicer sort of thing than it already is for the researchers that come. We might give out more. And finally, I want to mention another workshop that is going to happen. So ACM SIGCOM is a academic society on networking that runs a bunch of very high-profile, very good academic conferences. And they've recently become very interested in getting closer to industry again. And I'm part of the advisory board on the SIGCOM side for this. And the Internet Measurement Conference, which is the SIGCOM conference on measurements, meets in Tokyo actually, in the week before the IETF meets in Yokohama. So we are like 30 minutes on the subway apart from one another. And so we are using the opportunity of having that co-location to do an academic workshop on the Saturday, which is Halloween, October 31st, at the IATF site in Yokohama to get the two communities together. The important thing on this slide is the URL. All of the rest is screenshots, so you can look at this yourself. There's some more text. So it's co-sponsored by the Internet Society, the IRTF, and ACM SIGCOM, which it wasn't on Andrew's part of the talk. It's not an IAB workshop, it's an IRTF workshop. Participation, there's two ways in which you can participate. It's again an invitation-only thing. That's usually only because we need to do some crowd control, right? We have limited space. If you are an academic, either an IETF participant who is an academic or an academic on the SIGCOM side, and you've done work in this space recently and you have an academic paper, all you need to do to ask us to invite you is to send us, a citation, paper title, here, published here, and you're done. If you don't have one of those, but you still would like to come, we ask you to send us a short position paper on your thoughts on the topics of the workshop. This shouldn't be surprising to anybody. On the IAB and IRTF side, we frequently use the same mechanism. The submission deadline is in August, which is why I'm mentioning this now. So you have some time, you don't have a lot of time. We were promised to tell you by the end of August whether you have an invitation, and probably a little bit later tell you whether we put you in one of the sessions as a speaker, and the workshop date is October 31st. Thank you.
There we go. Hello, everybody. For the folks who are stuck standing in the back, there are some seats here in case your legs get tired. Heather Flanagan, RFC Series Editor. I will keep this brief. If you want to talk to me in person, I do have some office hours later today at the RFC Editor desk, which is right over there. First thing I wanted to mention is the RFC Production Center SLA. Congratulations, you guys aren't slowing down. You're producing a lot of documents. We know this SLA actually isn't a very good one. It's not measuring the right things, and in 2016 we actually have a very different SLA model. And just for fun, we went ahead and looked at the last 3 quarters, applying that to the 2016 model. And in that model, we actually are meeting the SLA. That model was put together with input from the RFC Series Oversight Committee, from the IETF Chair, IRTF Chair, IAB Chair, etc. So those are the numbers. It will look like a very different chart, and you'll see an example of that at the next IETF meeting. Speaking of the Production Center, every 6 years we are required to send that contract out to bid. That process is underway now. We are at the stage of receiving bids. Bids are welcome to come in until August 3rd, at which point there is a vendor selection committee in place that will review those bids, make a recommendation to the IAOC, and then a decision will be made in the September-October timeframe, at which point we award the contract and move on from there. If this is all news to you and you're curious as to what the statement of work looks like and all those what the SLA is described as, please go to the IAOC RFP website, and it's on that page. So since, I'm going to actually reverse this slide here, since March of 2015, last IETF meeting, we've completed 2 of the projects that were on my list. One was DOI assignment. That was fun. And also Google Scholar indexing. So now all RFCs on the RFC Editor website, which is the canonical location for them, are properly indexed in Google Scholar. So that took a lot of back and forth discussion, but it is done. It is fully indexed as of June. For projects that are still in flight, there's the RFC format. How many of you know that I'm working on the format? Oh, that wasn't as many as last time. I'm a little worried. I am working on revising the RFC format to be more than just plain text ASCII only, and more on that on the next slide. I'm also working on digital preservation. So the RFC series is a way to disseminate information about best practices, standards, etc., to the world. It's also an archival series, which means we're responsible for making sure that this material is available in perpetuity. And since it is all digital material, it's not like sticking it in a library somewhere and just assuming that the paper won't degrade, et cetera, et cetera. There's things that there are best practices. There's an archival industry that describes what you're supposed to be doing here. And it's not stuff we've really done in the past. If you're curious about the details and if you really want to see me get excited and geek out about it, because I had a whole lot of fun writing that draft, it's draft IAB RFC preservation. Please feel free to read it and comment. I hope to actually send it through the publication process real soon now. Okay. We're also updating the RFC editor website, which I think last received a refresh sometime in the mid-90s. So it's a little, it could use some work. So that project is also underway. So with the format work, we are revising the process by which the actual drafts associated with the project will move forward. Andrew mentioned something along those lines a little earlier, and what exactly that's going to look like, we are discussing. The statements of work that refer back to those drafts as the requirements for what need to happen are undergoing review within the tools development team. If you are curious and would like to comment, that is easily discoverable through the tools mailing list. Many of the drafts have been updated since the last IATF meeting. If you would like to see a list of common questions I've received about this, a list of exactly what drafts are associated with it, there is an FAQ that you are encouraged to look at, and if there's a question on there that you have that isn't on there, please let me know. So as I said, there's many of the drafts have been updated. Some of them are new, such as a prep tool draft, which we don't actually intend to publish as an RFC ever. It's basically just to organize our thoughts. And I really want to thank the design team that's been helping me with all of this. I mean, the community input has been great, but this design team has put in an incredible amount of work. We have calls every other week to go over this, and we're reaching out to people from New Zealand all the way to Germany. So we've got lots of different time zones underway, a lot of people holding a lot of pens, reviewing a lot of pages, and I am very appreciative of their time. Some of these people are at the point where they're lurking, but since they're on the list, I know I can reach out to them and say, can you take a special look at this over here and get some feedback. There's various avenues of communication. There's a wiki, which I admit I'm not as good at updating as I should be, but it is out there, and I do intend to get back to that to clean it up with what's going on today. There's the RFC interest mailing list. You're welcome to send in questions about what's happening with the series, what's happening with specific drafts, for example, in the format work. And of course, if you've got questions, comments, concerns, or feedback that you want to send in about the series or about how I'm doing, the RFC Series Oversight Committee is always happy to receive that input. And there we go. Thank you very much.